Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
2 certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only 2 best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go.
All right, well, last month, you interviewed me as a normal person, and now we're turning the tables, and I'm interviewing you for a very specific reason. Mm-hmm. There's a reason I'm interviewing you this month in particular. Mm-hmm. Do you want to, I think we've teased it a little bit, but.
Well, I actually said it in our Message from the Universe episode a few weeks ago.
In case people are not following every single episode, do you want to tell them why I'm interviewing you today, this month?
Yes. So next week on my birthday, which is Wednesday, August 18th, I am dropping the first episode in a solo mini-series podcast I have made called Forever Alone. The subtitle of which is One Introverted Millennial's Half-Agonizing, Half-Hopeful Journey Through Singledom. You can go subscribe to it as of today. There's nothing to listen to, but if you would like to preemptively subscribe, that would be great. You are going to be able to listen to it here on the Clarity on Fire feed, but it's going to be worth way more to me if you subscribe and listen to it over there, because that just, algorithmically is more helpful. So if you want to do me a solid and also a birthday, give me a birthday gift, then you could go subscribe and listen to it there when it comes out. And now we're going to talk about WTF is up with this. Why I did
Do you explain? Okay, so this is funny because I get to interview you.
You don't know what the hell you're talking about.
And I haven't listened to this. I haven't read the scripts. I haven't seen anything about this, really. I mean, maybe a teeny bit more than anyone listening, but not a lot more. So I get to interview you, not totally knowing what's coming in this, which is great. So I'm curious, do you describe more about the title and the subtitle, like why you chose that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you want to tell them now, or is this a teaser? You have to go listen to the actual series to hear about why.
Well, it's about the fact that I've been single, and this is all in the first episode. But yes, it's about the fact that I've been single, like actually, not sort of, like for real, actually single for over 8 years, 8.5 and counting, really, which is a really ridiculously, almost egregiously embarrassing length of time. But that's the case. And so when you have had a situation that remains unchanged for that length of time, it will make you question every single thing about yourself and your worthiness, your sanity, what the hell you're doing wrong or right. It will bring up all of your stuff and you will have to work through it, which is what this podcast is about. Mm-hmm. It's about
the half-agonizing part of the subtitle.
I mean, honestly, if we were being honest, it would be 100% agonizing, sometimes a little bit, maybe hopeful, but that's a reference to Persuasion. Do you know that? No, she didn't know that. Of course she didn't. No. She'll hear that when she listens to the first episode, but there's a heavy Jane Austen sort of theme throughout this.
I have seen some of the images and there's definitely a very Jane Austen vibe.
The art is very Jane Austen meets like Taylor Swift was sort of my mood board. Because she's sort of the patron saint of single women.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she wrote all the romances, but she never married, and she died at like 41 or something, unmarried.
And Taylor Swift is kind of the modern version of that in the musical world.
She's had a boyfriend for like 5 years now. But
and she's also very young. She has not died alone or anything, but she has a lot of anthems for the dating world.
It was more visual than it was deep like that, but okay, you can interpret that if that's how you want to do it. But yeah, so
okay, so kind of have a very, very broad sense of what this is about, but I'm not as interested in what's in it because I really want people to go listen to it and find out what's in it. Why would I give all that away? But I do want you to explain, first of all, why are you doing this? Because this is not really a Clarity on Fire thing. This is a you thing. This is not really, it's not, I mean, everything we do here, it has like a business flair to it. That's not really what this is about. Like, why are you doing this? This is a big effort. It's a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of effort put into this. So why?
Well, okay. So I have always sort of in the back of my mind thought I would write a book about this one day because I know it's being single is a very, very common universal experience, but there's also something very inherently isolating about it. I mean, like the word itself, it's like you are alone. And I really want people who are going through that isolating experience to feel like they are not doing it actually in isolation, that there's a lot of other people who relate. And even on a deeper level, I've wanted to write something for a long time that people like me could relate to, not people who are like chronic daters and always single, not people who are sort of bouncing from relationship to relationship, but can't find one that lasts. I mean, I think this will appeal to people of all types. It doesn't matter if you're single or not. You're going to get something out of this because it's about so much more than just the single experience. But I wanted to write something that people who are a little bit introverted and kind of a little bit on the more spicy salsa end of the spectrum, like you're dramatic, you're a little bit moody, and you feel like it's hard for me to find someone I actually like and connect with. Because I feel like for some people, this is just not a thing. Some people struggle to find a job that they like or that they, like a dream job. It just feels so elusive and so out of reach. But like they've never had trouble like connecting with people or dating or whatever. And they've never worried that they were going to end up alone. Not really. And I'm like, no. That has been my constant concern since I was too young to even actually get married. Do you know what I mean? Since I was like a child, this has been a concern of mine. And it's never stopped being a concern. So I kind of wanted to write something for those people because I think there's more than just me out there who feel this way and are worried about it. And who've done a lot of had a lot of really bad thoughts about it. And I mean like who've taken it out on themselves, who've blamed themselves for like the fact that I'm in this situation. So that's why I wanted to do it.
Maybe it's fueled some anxiety, depression, self-doubt, confidence,
loathing. I mean, go ahead. The list goes on, all of that. So I've always wanted to write about it because I've had to learn a lot in going through the ups and downs of processing everything I thought was wrong with me, which we can get into all the things I think was wrong with me. Of course, you're also going to hear that like in the podcast itself. But there's also like a why now, because I've been wanting to do this for quite some time, but it was only in January when I got the fever. And it was, so if you guys remember back in January, we had an episode about the artist's way and about how much Kristen and I were kind of triggered by it.
And how we did the bare minimum of the artist's way experience and still were having very severe reactions.
Yes. Like an anaphylactic reaction to the artist's way. So this is one of the things that came through when I was doing the artist's way. I was in the shower because like that's where you get your ideas.
Yep.
And I just thought, this is a podcast. Like, and I could immediately see like the arc and the episode titles and like the imagery and the visuals, like all of it just kind of came to me like very close to fully downloaded. And I was like, I can't, but my immediate reaction was, I can't do that. That's so much work. But then my immediate reaction to that was, I can't let myself down. Like, I can't not do that. Like, I don't want to be one of those people who has an idea that they're feeling called to do and then doesn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just feels like only I could do this. Only I could write this particular tale and tell it the way I want to tell it and have it look the way I want to look. Like, this is my thing. And like, if I don't do it, no one's going to do it. And I think I have a really good story to tell.
And when inspiration hands you pretty much a fully formed, downloaded, creative idea, it's almost like you feel like you have a responsibility to make it manifest.
I was literally about to say, it felt irresponsible not to do it. So I think it was very soon after that, I sat down and I just like, one night I just started to get it out. And it was like, it was like my brain was on fire and I couldn't even sleep a couple nights in a row because I was having so many ideas. Like I couldn't get them out fast enough. And then I kind of got like super overwhelmed and triggered by that. And I was like, okay, well, instead of like torturing myself, I'm just going to like not watch TV and I'm just going to write instead of watching TV for like a few months and then I'll finish it. I don't have to like compete with, at that time, I was also doing another job. Remember, I was like doing my IPEC job. So I was like, I have 2 jobs and I'm now taking on like a 3rd job, which is a lot of effort because this isn't just like turn on a microphone and start talking. This is, I have to basically write a book and then I'm going to record it.
And perform it too.
Yes, right. Not just be like, and then I said this, like put my emotion into it. And
which is different than when you're doing something like this, where there's interaction. You're the only one. So
no. It's not talking. It's more of a performance. So I have to write the whole thing and then I have to perform it basically. So it was kind of another job that I decided to sign myself up for. Well, very quickly, I missed watching TV. So then it kind
of... I remember you saying, this is what I'm going to do instead of watching all my shows each week. And I was like, okay, but I know.
Well, that didn't last, did it? So I very quickly put it on the back burner, being like, all right, I have to be kind to myself. Like I started working on this. I feel like I honored the inspiration and the energy and where it was coming from, but I'm also driving myself crazy trying to do all of these things at once. And it's just a lot. It was too much. So then it was like April, maybe late March, early April. And I just kept feeling the urge to move on from having 2 jobs. And we talked about this like a few months ago. And I felt like my body was there, but my mind and spirit were gone. I felt like I was just like a physical being clocking in and out, but I felt like I'd graduated high school and I was still being asked to show up to class. And so eventually, as you guys might remember from a few months back, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I got to go. And I felt like I have to do this. Like, this is the thing I'm supposed to be doing instead.
Right. That other thing is almost stealing my time and energy from the thing that I know in my soul I'm supposed to be doing right now instead.
Yeah. And so that's what I did. I mean, it wasn't just for that reason. Obviously, I was like, there's other reasons that went into it and I felt good about it. And I just felt compelled to create space. I was like, I need more space. I don't have enough space. And there are a lot of things that I want in my life that aren't going to come in if I don't have enough space for them.
And this was one of them. It wasn't the reason, but it was, this is asking for more space from me. And also, but I just need more space in general in my life.
Well, and I know that I was never going to do this if I didn't have proper space, but it didn't feel like an option not to finish it. It just felt like I would be so out of integrity if I started this and didn't see it through. So I was like, no, I'm doing it. And so I did. I quit. And then I actually did. Now, it hasn't been like on any sort of particular schedule. It's more of just like I gave myself enough time that I felt like I could work through it at a steady pace. And I'm not the kind of person who can sit down and write like a paragraph at a time. I'm like, if I don't have 3 hours, it's not happening. Like I have to really get into a flow and like get out like 2,000 words at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not like a 15 minutes a day kind of a writer.
It's
You're
all
like
or nothing.
Take a whole Sunday and that's all that happens. Is a big batch of writing. Okay.
Yeah. So I wrote a whole, I'd write like a whole 6,000 words in one day, which would take me like 7 hours. But then I would do that and it would be done. And it has been, I'm not even done writing it yet at the time we're recording this. I still have a third of it left to write, but I'm confident that I can and will finish it. I mean, I'm here talking about it. It's coming out next week. Like it's got to be done. But it's really good. I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. It's very good. I think you're going to really like the first chapter and you're going to be surprised at where it goes.
Me or everyone?
You and everyone. Oh, okay. Everyone, but you're not. Yeah, I think you're going to be like, oh, okay. Yeah. All right. I see that. But like, it's just not what I don't know that it's what anyone is expecting it to be about, which is kind of the point.
Yeah.
Like, it's not really about, it's not about complaining about being single. I make that very clear at the very beginning. It's not what this is about. This is about like, hey, it's not your fault that you're alone, but it is your responsibility. What are you going to do about it? Mm-hmm. And then how are you going to work through all the stuff that might inadvertently be blocking you from getting what you want or becoming a match to what you want? And then ultimately, how do you even let that go at the end? I'm not going to give away. I mean, there's really nothing much to give away at this point, but I haven't written it yet. But yeah, I mean, there's this whole journey that you have to go on from like feeling like I'm at the effect of this. I feel like a victim to my circumstance. I feel like this is awful and crappy and I feel alone to, all right, I'm going to take responsibility for this. I'm going to work through my baggage. I'm going to like become the best version of myself. And then there's like even a next level beyond that, which is, and now I have to let it go.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that that's how you've overall structured it? Mm-hmm. Is in those kind of unofficial stages? Okay. No, how far back do you go?
I mentioned myself as a toddler once. No, I start out.
I mean, I know there's some high school stuff in there. Yes. I don't know if you go much beyond that.
Yeah, there's a whole chapter about high school and college. Mm-hmm. Each chapter is a Jane Austen inspired title. Just in that, like, she's got like Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility. So there's alliteration in each title of each episode is alliteration. So the high school chapter is called Proms and Palpitations.
That's good.
Yeah. And so, yeah, you get my whole relationship history from beginning to end for the most part. But then it doesn't linger on like the boys part of it. Mm-hmm. That's not, again, it's not what it's about.
Just like you were saying before, this has been your entry point or one of your big entry points into a real like self-discovery process. I mean, I would say career was to an extent at a certain phase of your life, but for some people, that's their main entry point. For other people, it's health stuff or it might be family stuff. But yours has been this relationship, particularly romantic relationship, has been a huge catalyst for so much growth that you maybe didn't even want to go through or get into. But I imagine that's the real emphasis. The real emphasis is the impact that having to work through all of the doubts and the fears and the hopes and all of that has
how it changes you.
So it's not about like, and here's this boy that I liked, and then this next boy that it's not about that.
Hey, how do I reconcile my relationship with the idea of a higher power?
Right.
Because that's what chapter 3 is about.
The big questions that get pulled out of like
chapter 4. That's what chapter 4 is about. Yeah. No, it's like, how do I reconcile my relationship with my passion and my purpose? Mm-hmm. Because how do I reconcile my relationship with a higher power? Because you kind of start to realize, what you think about relationships, you copy and paste onto everything.
Yep.
how you show up one place is how you show up everywhere. So if you're expecting a relationship to come in and like swoop you off your feet and save you and like provide you with all of the happiness and the feelings, guess what? You're probably doing that about your career too. And you're probably doing that with like some idea of a higher power. And like, so it's about all of it because you're you and you take yourself everywhere you go.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this feels like it gets real personal and very exposed.
Yeah, there's like nothing that you're not going to know about me for the most part after you listen to this.
And I know, I'm sure some people who are listening to this are like, ooh, that feels super vulnerable, especially to be creating something that is so personal that you know is going to be put out into the world. So I wonder if that was any part of your mental calculus or if there was any weirdness that came up about that.
No, I don't care.
Okay. Is that just because of who you are? Or is that because you've kind of been doing this podcasting thing for a little while? Like, wow. Like
maybe both.
Why is that not vulnerable? Whereas for some people that would be paralyzing.
Because the worst part was living it.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Talking about it after the fact when you already know what happened, not hard. Not hard. The worst part is being in it and not knowing how it's going to end. Which, to be fair,
do you ever really?
I still don't know.
I mean, but also, does anyone ever really know how it's going to end? Like that's kind of the nature of this whole thing we're doing.
No,
this life thing.
So it's not really vulnerable because I'm not a closed book. I'm obviously always been an open book. I'm kind of an oversharer as it is. Also, I curated everything that went in this. So everything I say is because I wanted to say it and I wanted you to hear it. But no, I'm not like, oh my gosh, this is so vulnerable. Like, nope, this is just me being honest like I always am because I know that you're going to relate to it. I know everyone will find something they relate to about this story because you could copy paste, like you could self-insert into this and it not be about, relationships or romance. It could just be about it could be about how you feel about not having a career that you really love yet. It could be about, really wanting anything really badly and not getting it yet. And having to go through like a years long process of like, why don't I have this thing? So it's not really vulnerable because I feel like it's universal. Like everyone can relate to that on some level. I'm just giving you an inside peek into how I personally processed it and relate to it. And because most of what I'm writing about is in the past, it doesn't feel vulnerable. Now, if I had to sit down and tell you today what I'm processing still on this journey, I'm fingers crossed I'm planning a season 2 for this. So if I had to go tell you my season 2 thoughts right now, I couldn't do it. Okay. I'd break down crying if I had to tell you my season 2 thoughts today.
Okay. So that's actually a question I wanted to ask you because there's a different experience in going back to something that no longer feels like it's a big part of your life, right? Like there was this season of my life. So maybe somebody overcomes an illness, right? And then now they feel like they're on the other side of it and they can tell that story and it's not super activated current day.
Yeah.
But
this is still relevant.
but some of this feels like you can, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Well, like what's the cutoff for you to feel like I'm willing to share this, but not this because this still feels so active. Because it's an ongoing story. So it's hard to tell an ongoing story that doesn't feel like it has
I know. I'm gonna have to be
bow
careful.
on it.
I'm gonna have to be careful because I haven't finished it yet. So I'm gonna have to be careful where I end it. So that I don't do too much or like or just, I don't know. Like, I don't want to give away anything I haven't processed yet.
Fully. Okay. Maybe that's it. Maybe
I think you have to process it before you can really share it with other people.
Yeah. Season 1 is the already processed stuff.
Pretty much.
Season 2 might be the stuff currently being processed.
That would be my intention and my goal.
Now, I do wonder, because some of this you knew you were going to share, you've processed before, and it kind of came to you pre-downloaded. But I have to imagine going through the exercise of actually writing it all down brings some new stuff up. Did you end up processing along the way stuff that you didn't expect?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is going to sound so egotistical, but when I went back and read it and then listened to it, I was like, damn, I don't know how that came out of my head. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, I don't remember writing that. It just kind of flowed. So I was like, yeah, this is some really good points that I've just made right now. So like, yes, I guess I was processing it, but wasn't conscious. It was just like, oh yeah, look, I'm like connecting dots and I'm seeing themes. And I'm making, you know what I was doing is I wasn't processing it for my current self. A lot of what I was doing is I was retroactively processing it on behalf of my younger self. That's what I was doing. I was processing it for the 17-year-old who like didn't understand why that boy broke her heart. I was processing it for the 23-year-old who was like, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to be alone forever because I'm never going to get what I want, but I'm not going to sacrifice. Like I'm going to make this really hard choice because I don't believe that what I want is possible, but I don't want to settle. So the only option therefore is to be alone. So I processed it on behalf of like that version of myself. I think that's what's happening when you go back and it's like a memoir, right? Like you're going back and you're almost like making peace with all of these past versions of yourself.
And putting words to things that you couldn't have explained because you were too in it and you didn't have the perspective, but now you do have the perspective. So you can see, oh, there was a lot more going on there than I would have known at the time.
Yeah.
And with retrospect, I can be clear about that for myself and I can help other people who might be in their own version of those earlier stages in this arena or a different arena. Get there more quickly.
Yeah, because who I was at 17 is who someone might feel they are right now. Or who I was at 23, whatever, might be who someone feels like they are right now. And so me healing myself hopefully heals you. Actually, that's what I say in my intro, which you haven't heard yet. I didn't say heal, but that's kind of where I'm going. It's like, I want this to change me, but I also want it. I'm hoping that hearing it changes you too. Yeah.
Okay. So that kind of leads into another question I had, which you've already started to answer, but it's very clear why this is a needed creative healing exercise for you. And I just want you to be super clear about like, what is your hope for anyone listening? So some validation for sure. And I think that's what you started with was you might be going through an experience that feels very solitary, but we can kind of be united in our own versions of a more solitary experience. So there's kind of validation there for sure. What else would you say you're hoping people learn about themselves?
I want them to simultaneously stop beating themselves up for feeling like it's their fault that they are where they are and that they don't have what they want, and simultaneously take responsibility for what they might need to do in order to become a match to what they do want. And then ultimately get to the point where they're willing to surrender the outcome, which is the hardest thing you can possibly do. It's like, I want something really badly and I have no confirmation, no evidence, no real guarantee that it's going to happen. So can I still be happy anyway? Can I like learn to be content with myself and not content with this situation at the same time? And like, can I reconcile those two things? I wanted to give people hope because I need it. That's why I wrote it. Because I don't want this to be, I say at the very beginning that like, I quote myself now.
That's a very you thing to do.
I quote myself when I say that like, I'm kind of glad that as I'm writing this, I'm not some like happily ever after bitch here to patronize you. That's
what I was saying before is it's like, there's a story you tell when there's a bow on the end.
No, there's no bow.
And there's a different flavor to that story. That's like, oh, just wait until you're,
There's no bow. Like that's actually a very like double entendre that you just made. Like the old school version of boyfriend was a bow.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
I don't think you realized that you did something.
No,
smart,
I didn't.
So I pointed it out.
I always like being pointed out my smart comments.
Okay, well, I don't know if it counts if you didn't know that you were doing it, but no, there's no bow on this. Like Not yet anyway. And that's why that's why I really felt compelled to do it when I did it. Mm-hmm. Was like, oh, I don't want to ever be a happily ever bitch patronizing someone, because they won't take it as seriously if they know that I'm only writing this because I knew there was a good ending.
Yeah.
No, I'm not writing this because I know there's a good ending. I'm writing this without having any idea what the ending actually is. And I'm writing it on the hope that there will be a good ending. And I might embarrass the shit out of myself in writing something that ends up not having a good ending at all.
Well, regardless, that's what makes it that's what makes this more just real and raw.
Right.
As like, here's just the experience. And it's really nice to be able to put stories in perfect story framework boxes where we have the introduction, and then we have the challenge, and then we have the climbing the heights, and and then we have a perfect little ending, right? Like that's the stories that we like to tell and hear. But those are not always the stories that make us feel validated or seen in our own experience, because that's not typically how life works itself out.
How many years do you have to wait before you're allowed to tell that story if you have to wait until there's a bow?
Right.
Like, I can't wait until I have a good ending. I just had to do it.
And it almost takes something away from the story itself, because people are just waiting for the ending.
Right.
When in reality, it's like, no, it's the story that is where all the good nuggets are.
All of this stuff is valid regardless of what the ending is or isn't. Like, every bit of this was good and true and valid. So no, I'm not going to wait until, there's like a man to validate why I went through this journey. That's not what this is about. No.
Not what it's about. Okay. So I am curious, and you can feel free to say, nope, I don't want to. And that's fine. But is there any kind of nuggets or like teaser little mini stories that you want to share from it so far?
Probably, maybe.
I didn't prepare you for that. I just...
No, it's okay.
Drop that on you.
One of the biggest arcs in this is realizing that at a very critical juncture, I got my heart broken and very much split into two different people. I split into someone who had a mind, and I split into someone who had a heart and a body, and ne'er did the two paths cross again for many a year. And I very much just lived in my mind and did not allow my body to be part of the equation of so many choices I made when it came to dating and boys. I'm going to say boys because that's more accurate about what was happening when I was young. I just I had boyfriends who I wasn't attracted to in any way. And it didn't matter. It was like, you just need a boyfriend. That's more important than your body being happy. Which actually caused a lot of trauma.
Sure.
When you inflict that kind of I don't want my body doesn't want to be here, and I don't care. I'm forcing my body to be here. Not great. Not great. So
would you say this is partially a story of you reintegrating those parts of you?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Because by the end, that's one of the big pieces I want to end on, is kind of the last hurdle that I had to go through very recently, actually, to realize, oh yeah, I need to integrate these three things. Like, no wonder Hinge is triggering me, because I'm in my mind and my body doesn't feel like it gets a say. And this is bringing up all of this old trauma that started when I was 17. And so I think a lot of us do that. I think a lot of us, when it comes to relationships, we are in our mind all the time, and we don't allow our body to have a say. And for me, that kind of manifested as dating people I wasn't attracted to because I felt like I couldn't do better, or I felt like it was more important to check a box, when I was young, social status, and to make sure that I wasn't the weird one who didn't have a boyfriend. And I think it's very common for people and women to just not even be connected whatsoever to our bodies, or not realize that our intuition is trying to speak to us through our body. And me reconciling with that and integrating that back into how I make decisions was huge. And only kind of recent, to be honest. That was a 15-year journey from when that started to when I actually like healed from it.
Am I remembering this correctly that kind of the culmination of that healing process was happening while you were writing this? Or was that before?
No. It was happening when I got the idea. And then it was probably happening during the hiatus between when I started working on it and then when I actually picked it back up again. Mm-hmm. But that was probably part of what fueled my desire to really write it was, oh, wow, I just kind of like healed 15 years worth of trauma. I really need to write that down because other people need to hear that too. Mm-hmm. I feel like my belief was, and a lot of people's belief is that you can't have it. I mean, this is so dumb, but you can't have it all. And what I mean is like, you can't have it all in one person. Like you can't like be attracted to someone on a physical level and have like the comfort and the stability and, you know, they're funny and they're smart. It's like, we are conditioned to think that you're going to have to settle. You're not going to be able to have all of these things. You got to pick what's important to you. I never wanted to do that. But then I forced myself into that for years, made myself miserable, decided not doing that again. Still don't believe I'm going to be able to get it in one person, but not doing that again. So I guess I'll just be alone for 8.5 years until I was finally like, I tried to confront it a number of times throughout that 8.5-year journey. You remember, you were there.
Oh yeah.
Until I kind of finally only recently really like faced it down and was like, no, I'm going to get to have all of this in one person come hell or high water. And that's just that on that. like actually believing it's possible now, not just like hoping it's possible, but not sure. No, I do now. I do believe that that's possible now. Doesn't mean that if you meet someone like that, you're not going to have a lot of issues to work through. I think season 2 could potentially delve into that if and when I'm ready. But yeah, was that enough of a teaser for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think people are going to be like, ooh, I think there's some ways I might have been doing my own version of that already.
Just wanting something to save you,
yes.
Wanting something to give you all the feels that you don't want to like have to figure out how to give yourself. Also having compassion with yourself because of course you want this thing and there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting it. But just because you're worthy of it doesn't mean you're ready for it. And that's a really hard lesson to learn too. And that might apply to a job or a baby or a relationship. Like there's so many things that could apply to. And that's a really hard lesson to learn. And I definitely hit on that a lot too.
Couple other things that I genuinely don't know if you've included or not, but this that I feel like could come up in this.
Okay. Well, you're in every chapter as I've but you mentioned my name once in every chapter.
It'd be weird if I wasn't. I guess you'll say this in the episode too, but pretty much everyone else I think has a pseudonym except me, right?
There's a few friends whose names I haven't changed because I'm like, they're not going to care if I call Joanna by name, right?
Yeah.
But every boy mentioned definitely had his name changed and some identifying characteristics.
Because that's a weird thing too, to write about people who exist in the world, real people.
If there's one thing that's vulnerable about it, it's like, well, there's a chance some of these ex-boyfriends could hear this. But I'm like, no. If you're dumb enough to listen to your ex-girlfriend's podcast about singledom, that's on you.
Valid. Like you knew what you were signing up for.
There's only one guy I would actually be like, I would feel bad if he heard it because we didn't ever actually date. And so it is a little weird that I went on and on about him. But he's so integral to my story. Like he was sort of like the first boy who broke my heart, even though he wasn't my boyfriend. I had to tell that story. So if he heard it, I'd be like, yeah, this is a little weird. I'm sorry. But if like you're an ex-boyfriend of mine and you're listening to this, like that's on you. Like, what are you doing? Not a good idea.
Okay. So there's a couple of things that I'm curious if they come up. One is attachment styles. I feel like that could be relevant, but I'm not sure if that is in phase 1. Maybe that's in.
I thought of it. So when I originally planned this out, I had a whole chapter I was going to call Feral Cats and Femininity. And it was going to be about attachment styles. The more I brainstormed it and the more this arc is going, the more I'm like, that's a season 2 problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think I'm going to touch on attachment styles that heavily in this season.
Okay. I was curious because it's a thing we've talked about on the podcast before. That's very relationship oriented.
I'll probably mention it in passing.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be more potent when I have someone with whom it's being triggered. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, sure. Makes sense.
Yeah. But it's not a theory. It's a reality. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that it's harder to work on by yourself. Because it's about attachment.
Again, it's kind of like a theory until you have someone who is making you feel like a feral cat.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Okay. Another thing that I'm curious about is if or how much you touch on, I feel like there's this weird double standard that women get confused by, which is everyone wants to know, like, well, are you dating anyone or are you getting married? Like everyone wants you to partner up. That's like it's a very big societal pressure is to partner up. Mm-hmm. But then there's this also like very feminist viewpoint of I don't need no man and I'm an independent woman and it's embarrassing to want partnership and the mixed feelings that come up around wanting it, feeling like I should want it, not feeling like maybe it's embarrassing to want it. I've heard a lot of women struggle with that tug of war. And I wonder if that's been part of your experience.
My answer, well, yes, it has been part of my personal experience. My answer to how it shows up in the podcast is that I am unapologetically team. I don't give a shit. I want this. You know what I mean?
I love that because I don't think there's a lot of that out there anymore. And
now, I will touch on that at probably toward the end of like kind of like the shame. I'm definitely going to touch on like the shame of wanting it for sure.
Yeah.
And then feeling bad for wanting it or being made to feel by other people bad for wanting it.
Yeah.
While simultaneously being shamed for being alone. Yes, I am going to touch on it. I don't think it's going to be like a whole chapter's worth of stuff, but I definitely had experiences with it that I will touch on. But yeah, I'm kind of just like, no, I just want this and I don't need to, I do examine why I want, in chapter 1, I get into why do I want this? And I actually do 2 different examinations. Why do I want love? And why do I not want to be alone? Because those are 2 different things.
Yes, those are definitely 2 different things that I think get conflated too often.
Yeah, but I'm also just unapologetically like team, you want to like meet a dude who is like emotionally intelligent and, you know, really deeply interested in you and consistent and has Ryan Gosling's abs. Like, sure. Why would you not want that? I fail to understand why anyone would not be attracted to that idea. So like, no, I'm not here to be like, again, I'm here to be like, you want what you freaking want and don't let people try to talk you into settling.
I think that's a refreshing viewpoint in like a post-feminist world where we're not where like that's all women were known for wanting. Like
I know
back in the day, if you're a woman, of course you want to get married and have babies, and that's all you want.
We're not allowed to want that, and now we're back to being allowed to want that.
And so now we're like, wait, what am I supposed to? Am I not supposed to? Is there something wrong with me if I want it? If there's something wrong with me if I don't want it? Like anyway, so okay. I think that's the main questions. I more wanted to hear your experience creating this, figuring out what to include, what not to include, what came up for you. I don't really want to get too much into what's in it because I want people to just go listen to it.
Yeah.
But is there anything you wanted to share ahead of time that I haven't prompted you on?
I don't know. I think that was pretty good.
Okay.
If you don't want to listen to it after that, then I can't really sell you any harder on it.
Again, asterisk on this. I know it's called Forever Alone, but I think we've said it. We're going to say it again. You don't have to be single to get a lot out of this. That's not what it's about. It's not like you're just talking to the single ladies out there.
You don't have to even give a shit about relationships to get something out of this. I mean, not really. Maybe chapter 1 might be kind of heavily on that, but then the rest of it is, it's processing your feelings about your career. It's processing your feelings about a higher power, processing being let down by that higher power and having a pit of despair so deep you're not sure you're going to be able to claw yourself out of that level of depression. You know, if that sounds relatable, then it's about much more than just relationships.
Yeah, I just don't want people to count themselves out because they think it's about one specific thing that's not relevant to them. Like, this is going to be relevant to you, is what I'm saying.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so it's coming out next week.
Wednesday, my birthday.
Again, you can hear it here on this podcast, but Rachel would very, very much appreciate it. Would be a very nice birthday present to Rachel if you would go subscribe to
Forever Alone,
the Forever Alone podcast separately.
Yes.
And when you listen to the first episode and love it, then you just definitely give it a 5-star rating and review. So
that should go without saying, but yes, I'm going to need your ratings and reviews.
But I'm saying it for you because I want people to then you don't have to toot your own horn, although I know you don't mind tooting your own horn. But I also want to give people the idea, if you want to give Rachel a birthday gift, that's the very best one that she would most appreciate.
I really would.
I think I can speak for you and accurately say that.
I guess the last thing I will say is that I wrote this story because I needed it. And I still need it, like literally today in this moment. So like, I don't really care what anyone else thinks of it. If you like it, that's great. That's like the cherry on top of my Sunday. I wrote this because I needed the constant reminder of why I'm doing this and what I've been through and where I'm going, and that there is an arc to this journey and that this is leading somewhere and that it is going to make sense. I wrote it as an act of faith that I am still trying to have at 11:37 at the time of our recording this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So like, anything else beyond that is just cake. It was more for me.
Oh, and what good permission that you can make stuff just because you need it. And you can make stuff before you feel like you're done. For anyone who is struggling with their own creativity or their own creative process, just know, like Rachel's doing it and it's for her. And you know what? A bunch of people are going to benefit from it. That's not even the point. That's a nice side effect. So make what you want to make what you need to make. And the world will benefit because we're all human and we all share the same, really challenging, hopeful, emotional roller coaster of the human experience. And so there's no way you've experienced something that someone else has not experienced. And when you are just honest and raw and revealing of here's been my little piece of the human experience, there's something very healing about that. And there's something very solidifying with other people about that. So
yeah. And hearing the nuances and the specificity of my journey, I hope it will actually be universally understandable because I'm not trying to make it generic. It's just about me. But in doing that, I think it's going to be about you too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I do have one more question for you. I think you answered it on an earlier podcast, but again, I don't want people to have like heard every single one to get this.
Okay.
Why are you releasing it on your birthday?
Well, because I hate birthdays and I'm trying to make this one a better one. Birthdays are so triggering for me, like as someone who has a fear of aging and just anxiety in general it manifests in like a fixation on how quickly time is passing. And so birthdays are just this really concrete proof of how quickly time is passing. And so they often make me feel weird. And so I'm doing this because I'm trying to make my birthday a more pleasant experience. Also, and be like, oh, well, last year my birthday hadn't done this. So here's this, a gift to everyone, not just myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Also, in the context of what you're getting into in the podcast, when it feels like there's something that you've been wanting for a long time, birthdays can be a reminder of not having it. So if you've wanted a relationship, or if you wanted a career, if you wanted something, milestones feel harder. And guess what? There's always something you're going to be wanting. So even when you get the one thing you've been thinking you've been wanting forever, guess what? You're not going to be done wanting stuff. So I think what I'm kind of hearing you say is like, I'm going to reframe what this birthday thing is about. Instead of using it as a mile marker to fixate on what I haven't gotten, I'm going to choose to have something that I look forward to that feels like I'm being my most and that I'm true self today.
Yeah, and that I'm ultimately very proud of.
Yes, exactly. Like we're shifting the internal conversation of a day like a birthday.
I mean, I didn't have to do this. I just did this because I wanted to. I put a lot of time and energy and effort into something for no other reason than I just felt compelled to do it. And it's been very rewarding. Like the writing of it, it's not been easy, but it's been rewarding. Writing it, recording it, editing, well, with my producer, editing it, picking out the music, the artwork, the website. I've done it all of it. It's just been one big creative venture that I had no purpose to do other than that I wanted to tell this particular story at this particular time.
To release it then on your birthday.
Exactly. Like, like Leos do. Here, take a look at me. Okay.
All right. Well, then look out. What day is this coming out? Do we know which?
Wednesday, August 18th.
Okay. And then is it always going to be Wednesdays is what I'm saying?
It's going to be Wednesdays from there on out.
Because they're used to hearing from us on Fridays, but now you're going to also hear from us on Wednesdays for a little while.
6 weeks. You'll hear from me once a week on Wednesdays with Forever Alone. But again, I would really like for you to subscribe to the Forever Alone feed and listen to it there. And then give it a 5-star rating and review, please.
Yep. Happy birthday to Rachel.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye.